The other huge benefit of storage is that your leases and your contracts are 30 days maximum. Most people aren't doing anything longer than 30 days. So when markets change, when prices go up, supply in the area goes low, you can adjust that price very quickly. We're on an apartment, we're stuck for a year, sometimes 2 years on a lease. So when prices are climbing, it takes a year before we're able to recognize that. So the storage gives us a little bit of flexibility with that as well.
Welcome to another episode of Wealth Wednesday. I'm your co-host, Nate Crannell, always on location. Mike Neubauer, the other co-host here. Looks a little cold there where you are in Indiana.
Yeah, man. Winter is apparently here, so not too excited about it because we're dropping off roofing shingles and it's hard to do a roof with snow on a roof, but it's all right. I'd hopefully get a little bit warmer and get this done before the real snow starts hitting.
I mean, was this expected, or was it hey, we're doing the storage unit thing today regardless?
It may have been expected for people that check the weather, but we had the date planned. We just didn't check the weather, so it may be expected if we would have looked, but I woke up to it and found out, oh, I think it's going to snow today.
Yeah, I have to wear my fuzzy hat.
Yeah, exactly, man.
Love it. Well, as our listeners know, we are in the multifamily space, typically apartment complexes, but you have dabbled into storage units before. What brought that interest and curiosity on?
Yeah, man. So we do multifamily because I've tested that. You know, we've gone down that. I've done that initially and kind of got that system figured out. So we always try to test things with our own money first before we ever bring it, to our fund or any of our investors. So that's kind of where I'm at with the storage world right now, is just making sure this works. But the biggest thing with the storage is just a little bit more hands-off. It's more operating a business than it is real estate. So obviously it's a huge real estate component, all the same benefits of real estate. But the biggest benefit to it is that you don't have the tenants living there. You don't have them there all the time. Some people have a storage unit and they'll be there, 3 times a year maybe. So your tenants just aren't having a lot of problems. But the other huge thing about storage that I like, so it's a convenience on maintenance and management. But the other huge benefit of storage is that your leases and your contracts are 30 days maximum. Most people aren't doing anything longer than 30 days. So when markets change, when prices go up, when supply in the area goes low, you can adjust that price very quickly. We're on an apartment, we're stuck for a year, sometimes 2 years on a lease. So when prices are climbing, it takes a year before we're able to recognize that. So the storage gives us a little bit of flexibility with that as well.
So say somebody brings in all, old mattress and just all the stuff that Americans seem to have, and why self-storage is starting to grow. That 30-month or 30-day lease, is that does that just auto renew every month unless they say something to you?
Correct. Yeah, it auto renews. So they have the flexibility that they're not stuck. If they're just between houses or something, they're not stuck here paying us for a year. So they have the flexibility to leave when they want. However, we also have the flexibility that if we go to 0% vacancy and we have people knocking on the door for units, we can say, hey, you got to pay this higher price or you have to move. So both sides benefit, in the end with that 30-day lease. However, for the way we operate, we do benefit quite a bit. I don't want to say more, but I mean, it is for us very nice that we can push rates because the tenant's kind of stuck. If we have no occupancy and we raise rates, they don't want to move all their stuff for a couple months. So we're able to push those rates a little bit. So I don't know. It's not, when I say that out loud, it sounds, kind of rough, but that's just the reality of supply and demand. It's hard when you have somebody calling you on a waiting list saying, I'll pay double than what somebody else is paying. Your job is to do what's best for the investor and make sure that people that put your money with you, are getting the best return. On the management side, it's our job to, make those tough decisions and tough calls and tell somebody, hey, you got to pay a little bit more because the market rate is just much higher than when you started here.
For sure. A second ago, you said this feels more like a business than multifamily does. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, so the multifamily, you have a lot of on-site people there, and you're really just doing property management, but what you're really doing is tenant management there. In the storage world, it's a lot of marketing and advertising because your clients are turning over quite a bit more. In the multifamily world, we have some people that stay there, I would say 10 years, probably longest, just because we haven't been doing it much longer, but those people year after year that, our record keeps growing. So they stay for a long time, and your job is to keep a happy tenant there. Where here in the storage world, just by the default of what storage is, people are turning over quite a bit. So you're running more of a business as far as marketing, keeping track of, market rents and rates, what the other area storage facilities have available right now. So you're much more running a business as far as, like an electrician, and they go do work. They don't have more work from that person the next day. Typically, they got to keep running that business, keep bringing in new clientele, and keep taking care of their current clients. So that's kind of what storage is, as well as, when somebody moves in, they're typically not staying forever. You'll have a few that stay in a bigger unit and they use it for long term, but a lot of it is very transient. So you just always got to be up on your marketing and kind of that typical business stuff of you know customer acquisition and then customer retention.
Yeah, and marketing is key. And I think you and I have talked before where I believe everyone is in sales in some way, and I believe everyone is a marketer in some way. Whether you're a surgeon, whether you're a plumber, whether you're a school teacher, you're selling something, whether it's yourself, a product, a service, whatever it is, but you're also marketing, right? You're always trying to promote, you're always trying to grow something that is of value or passion to you. So I even though self-storage, when people hear that, they might think, okay, that's just a building with a bunch of garage doors sitting there holding a bunch of people's stuff. How could the remarketing, how could that be a sales opportunity for that owner operator? It all is. It's everywhere.
Yeah, and for us, I mean, it on the multifamily world with what we do, but it correlates exactly to storage. So a lot of people in the storage world, this started in kind of the 90s, and a lot of these operators are from the 90s, and they still have their phone number posted. They want a phone call. They want to come meet you out here. Today's world, they want Uber Eats to drop it off, in 5 minutes at their house. So today's world wants convenience. So the way we're able to push prices is same way Uber Eats does. We provide more convenience, and maybe you got to pay a little bit more. So maybe you could pay $40 down the street, but you got to call the guy. You got to wait for him to show up. He's got to come meet you there. You got to fill this thing out. For us, you go to our website, in 10 minutes, you got a key code to get in and you're dropping your stuff off. So maybe you pay 20 bucks more a month, but that convenience is what people want. So that's kind of how we market, really on both sides, but especially in the storage world. When somebody's searching for storage, they're typically not planning out months in advance. They're searching for storage because something just happened today and they need a spot, and they don't want to deal with the hassle of everything else. They want to click a button and have their unit ready to go.
Yeah, talk to me about that, because as you say that, my first thought goes to self-storage. While it is about marketing and convenience for an individual customer, it's still about location, right? You got to be very dialed in on the location that you want to own a property that is a storage facility, because location's everything, right? If you're way out in the boondocks, you're probably not going to have a big just a population density wise is where my thought goes. And so how does, not necessarily marketing of a property that you own, but like when you're searching for another property, what goes into that? Location has to be one of them, but what are some of the other things that you guys are thinking about as you're looking for that next storage property?
Yeah, I mean, location is always huge, right? Location for anything, any real estate, 100% location is number one. For us, when we're looking, there's just different metrics. So we're looking at multifamily world is going to be much different in the storage world, and it's not a ton of things different, but there's difference in little variables that you're searching for. So in that storage world, you talked about location. There's something that is location dependent. So is it on a main road? Can you see it from the road? Things like that. But the other thing that goes into location is what kind of competition is within this location. So if I have a beautiful property on the best corner that anyone could ever have for storage, but there's also 20 storage unit businesses down the street, and you can't fill them up because the supply doesn't the supply exceeds the demand, well, then the location, even being the best corner, is kind of pointless. So what we're looking at is typically just a general rule of thumb is going to be about 7 square foot of storage space per population. So if you have a town of 10,000 people, that town needs about 70,000 square feet of storage. So that's kind of how we start hammering it down, is taking a look and saying, all right, there's 10,000 people here and there's 50,000 square feet of available storage. So just in general, we know that's kind of low, and then we start digging in a little deeper. If we look at that same town with 10,000 people and there's 500,000 square feet of storage, we know that there's either some unbelievable need of storage for some reason, or that town just has way too much supply available and the demand will never be met. So you either got to drop prices drastically low, or somehow you got to know that there's a ton of demand coming, a ton of growth coming. So
good economy point there. That's probably not something anybody would think about as they're driving by a storage facility. It's like, oh, some people probably think, oh, we have way too many storage facilities, and other people might not think there's enough.
Oh, man, Yeah, there, I'll tell you a quick story. So we're developing 100,000 square foot of storage right now in the town of Cedar Lake. So we went to the meeting. You have to do annexation, you have to do zoning, all of that. So I go to the meeting, and one person came from the public to, share that they didn't want another storage facility in town. So they stood up and they said, we already have too many storage facilities. There's one here, there's one there, telling all this. Of course, they don't understand the market data. It's just a random person who drives by a storage facility. They don't understand the details of it. And so they share this, and literally one of the board members said, unfortunately, I have to disagree with you because I was looking for a storage unit recently and there was nothing available in town. Everything was 100% booked. So I had to drive 30 minutes to a different town just to find a storage facility. So while there may be a number of buildings, we do not have enough storage for the demand within our town, because my own personal experience told me that. And I was like, oh, dude, mic drop. This thing's going through 100%.
Is that pretty common? Not somebody standing up saying there's not enough, but is that part of the process where that truly does differ than what we do in multifamily, that you do have to go to those types of meetings, county meetings, city meetings, board meetings to propose this? Or is this just simply because you guys are developing a brand new location, that's why that was needed?
Just for the development. So the development has its own hurdles. So, something that's already up and operating, they're zoned properly, or they should be. So that's something you would check in due diligence, so you don't have to go to these meetings. So the only time, in the development world, because we're developing that, we're taking a field and turning it into a storage facility. You got to jump through all these hoops and have public meetings and do zoning changes and all that. If that was existing, we wouldn't have to. But a lot of the value adds that we do in storage, people built these and they have a lot more land. They put them on land that was just, a chunk of land, and they're like, I'll throw some garages up. Well, a lot of times they have a lot of empty space to still put more, outside storage or more buildings up. So then we'll go buy that property, and the goal with that would be to go to these meetings and get approved for more storage on that site to double, triple, the amount of square foot that we have available. So we buy the property for what it's worth today, but we know that we want to add double or triple the amount of storage. So we should be able to double, triple the value of that property.
Supply and demand or otherwise, is it more advantageous to buy an existing property that maybe, they have 5 acres of land, they've only got storage on 2 acres, you guys can add on to the other 3? Is that more advantageous, or is it to truly develop an empty field like you guys are doing with that 100,000 square feet? What makes more sense if an investor was going to ask you that question? And again, this is just my curiosity, not being familiar with storage units. Like, would I want to invest in someone who's building a brand new 100,000 square feet, or, hey, you've got 30,000 square feet, but you have the opportunity to build another 70? What works better is it from the investor standpoint?
Yeah, so dude, I got a perfect answer for you, because we just talked about that 100,000 square feet, but I'm standing here at a facility right now that's 35,000 square feet, and this is total opposite. We're not developing. This is the exact one. We're on like roughly 10 acres. We got 35,000 square feet, but we have a ton of outside storage here. Let me see if I can turn this around, and you can just see, the amount of space. So we have a ton of space here that we can put storage additional up. So this is an example where we paid, I don't know, like high 400s for this property. It's going to be a great turnaround. It's really going to do well, but it is a ton of headaches because there's all the mistakes and issues that you have to fix first. So you come in today, we're dropping off shingles. The roof has to get replaced here because of that issue. You find leaks, you find, all kinds of leftover things. You find old plumbing, old electric, just all these issues that you got to take care of on an old building. But at the same time, we have a ton of land. There's a ton of value here that the previous operator didn't acknowledge, or, didn't have the ability to turn into, profit. So you have those issues. The nice thing is you have an operating property. So we have cash flow already coming in. So it's not all going out the door. We have some coming in to offset that, to buy us that time. So that's the benefit, is that you're still bringing in capital while you're improving the property. On this development one, we will have, the nicest property in town because we're brand new. Everybody else is 20 plus years old. We are a brand new facility. We control all of our costs. We decide the exact layout of the units, what sizes we want, where we're running electric, where we're running plumbing. So in that aspect, we're going to have a way better property. It's not terribly expensive comparatively to bringing this property on board, but what you lose is we have about a 2 to 3 year runway through that whole zoning change, annexing. That money is just going out the door every day. No money is coming in. So you got to decide what the goals are, what the plan is. You know, they both are advantageous in their own way. And what we're doing right now on the storage side, like I said, I try to do it with my own money to test it and make sure it works how I think it's going to work. But we're doing a development, and I'm standing here at this one that we're going to do kind of a rehab on. So we'll have the data from both of those, you know, in a year or two's time to know, well, what worked better for us, you know, doing these two deals.
Hey, back to marketing. You're just doing some split testing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, that's the only way to do it, man. You take a theory, a hypothesis, and you say, you know, that's basically what we're doing with the storage is we're taking the multifamily world and we're saying, all right, this works well in the multifamily world. There's some benefits to storage and some downsides comparatively, but it does allow us to diversify asset class a little bit. So let's go ahead and test, you know, a few options of how to get into storage and see, you know, how does this work for us?
Well, looking around as you were just showing kind of the acres that are there, I don't know where you are compared to major highways or a city or anything like that, but I saw that open land. My first thought is like, why don't we build some multifamily property there right next to that storage unit?
Yeah, well, you know, on that, so that's the thing, right? Is in a perfect world, you have enough space, but that's the thing is it's all this zoning. So it all comes down to the ordinances and what you're allowed to put where, because you can have the best idea in the world, but if it doesn't meet the zoning ordinance and you can't get a variance or a zoning change, it's just not going to work. So here on this property, for example, we're just outside of city limits. So we're right on the edge, but we're on septic. Well, you couldn't do a multifamily, for example, because you could never have a big enough septic on this property to take care of a multifamily. But storage, we obviously don't have plumbing, so we don't have to worry about the size of the septic. So in that scenario, you know, here is much better for outdoor storage or more storage buildings. We also are in kind of a smaller town where the multifamily wouldn't work great, but we're right by a vacation spot. So a lot of people are coming with their campers and boating all summer long, and they need a place to park them in the wintertime. So, you know, full-time residents with multifamily would be tough, but for us with the storage, it's perfect because in the summer months, everybody comes down to the lake here. So
This may be a dumb question, but again, curiosity. Is storage zoned as industrial, or what's the zoning of it?
the zoning will be different everywhere. So every county will have their own zoning. So because we're out of the town limits, we fall within the county. If we were within the town limits, then we fall within the town's zoning ordinance. So I don't know 100% out here, but this property is currently light industrial. So the ordinance may be that it's light industrial for all storage, but for sure storage is allowed in light industrial. Storage may be also permitted in a business or a commercial district. You just don't know. So you got to check the zoning ordinance. I know that development that we're doing, we had to do, they don't even have storage anymore within their zoning ordinance. So what we had to do was go to a business zoning. I think it was a B1 or B2. So B stands for business, and then they also subdivide, you know, their sections within that business. So there's a B1, a B2, a B3, and in every, you know, B1 allows certain businesses, B2 allows certain businesses, and they kind of break it down that way. But on that development, we had to go to a business zoning, I believe B1, and then we had to get a variance that said you are allowed to build storage within this business zoning. So there was no zoning that, you know, directly permitted it, but that was kind of how you do it in that town. Some towns are just very basic. They're just industrial, commercial, residential, you know, very to the point. So it all comes down to that zoning ordinance. And if you get into some bigger cities, especially in the bluer cities, you know, the zoning ordinances can be just unbelievable. They control every little piece of the puzzle.
So for an investor or somebody that's interested in doing storage, I mean, we've talked about some of the hoops, some of the things you have to think about, but realistic, I mean, you and some of your partners and stuff that are outside of Grand Vision are working on this development right now. But what do you think the obstacles are for someone that wants to get into storage that says, hey, you know, I have $200,000. I'd love to either buy a property, an existing property, or develop a new one. What are some of the obstacles that people should be aware of as if they're going to dive into that, or is it just easier to work with someone like you and have you take care of it?
You know, so it's always going to be easier to work with somebody like me simply because I put in the, you know, 10 plus years of learning this game. So the only way to overcome it is to gain the experience. So it's always, of course, going to be easier to work with somebody. But of course, you know, I get paid the management side of things. So, you know, you got to pay for buying somebody's experience and their expertise. If you want to do it solo, the biggest thing that's going to slow you down is just that lack of experience. So you're going to have the confidence issue that you're not 100% confident in what you're doing. You're going to be kind of second guessing yourself just because you haven't done it before. And probably the biggest hurdle is going to be the lending side. So right now, lending is a little bit tight, and the banks just aren't giving out money to anybody. So they want to see the experience for the most part on the backside. If they're giving you money, they want to see that they have very little risk and that you've done this before. So if you haven't done this before and you go talk to a lender and say, hey, this is my first deal, I would love you to give me the money for it, that's going to be the biggest hurdle on it. And you're just not going to have that experience and expertise to answer the bank's question to make them feel good about it. They're going to say, this seems kind of risky because you've never done it before. Here's some questions. Those questions are going to be very difficult to answer on the spot because you just don't have the background experience to know the answers to those questions. So I would say if you want to do it on your own, my best suggestion would be to find a mentor, so you could work with us, that's what we do in the multifamily world. We'll probably bring storage in-house, with Grand Vision at some point. But we do it basically just on your behalf. So that's why we set up the fund, was to have a general partner, limited partnership option. So people that want to get involved but don't want to deal with any of the headache or they don't have the time, we will do it for them. But if you didn't want to go that route, another thing that a lot of experienced people do is they do coaching and education. So if you really want to go at your own and you didn't want to, we don't, we do our free education, but not super detailed in depth. But then I would find a mentor, a coach, somebody that does storage and teaches it. And there's one called Storage Rebels. I would reach out to them and they walk you through and they explain these things and help you answer the questions, so it's like your own little college education on storage investing.
Yeah, that's great insight. And I had a feeling that was going to be your answer, just because, so many physicians and business owners that invest with Grand Vision, a lot of it is just they have the excitement or the interest in doing it. They don't have the time or the existing knowledge to be able to do it. So it's like, hey, I'm someone who has interest and I have capital. How can I get in? What's my path of least resistance to get into something that I have interest into? So I think you've hit the nail on the head there.
Everybody wants to get wealthy. Just in general, everybody would like to have that. And like we talk about, to be wealthy, you got to have two things. You got to have time and you got to have money. You can't have one or the other. So when you're looking to invest, the only way to get wealthy is investing. There is no other way to get wealthy. Even if you won the lottery, that money is just going to be gone if you don't know how to invest it. You got to invest to get wealthy. But to get wealthy, you either currently have one of two things. You either have time and you don't have money, or typically people will have money and no time. If they have both, they're already wealthy. So if you fall in the boat where you have time, but you have no money, well, then you can't really partner with us because we use the money to grow. We don't really need more operators and time. So you got to have to go on your own, but that's fine because you're not making a ton of money per hour. So it's worth it for you to gain a new skill and learn how to do this. Now, if you fall on the other side of the coin and you have more money than you do time, well, then you want to focus on putting that money to work. You don't want to pull away from what you're already making good money at. You put your money to work and you buy back your time. So you're either giving up your time to buy back money or you're putting money to work for you to buy back your time. Same at the end, the goal is just to have both time and money. It's just what path are you taking to get there and where do you stand right now?
Hey, D&D podcast family. I want to take a quick break in this episode to share a little behind the scenes of why the Doctors and Dollars podcast and our Wealth Wednesday series were made and why they're important. We have a number of physicians in our Grand Vision family office, and through conversations with them, we realize there is a huge void in financial education for physicians. We don't have time to personally work with every doctor out there, so the podcast is a way for us to offer a resource where you can learn about physician-focused wealth strategies via Wealth Wednesday, while also learning from other doctors making a splash in the medical community via Doctors and Dollars. Providing value is our top priority, and if there's a specific question or topic that you want to hear about, just reach out to us on any social media platform or go to the Doctors and Dollars website, which is ddpod.com. Also, if you'd like to take your wealth plan to the next level and be a part of a community of money-minded physicians in our family office, we open applications just twice per year. You can explore and get more details about the next application period at grandvision.co. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, let's say I'm a guy that has $200,000. You talked about the facility that you're at today was a $400+ thousand dollar acquisition. say I'm a guy that has 200,000, I can go to the bank and get another 200,000, buy a property similar to where you're standing today. Why would I want to do that? Like, what are the upsides? Why is that attractive?
I mean, dude, the investing is just straight putting your money to work for you. So if you have that 200,000, we talk about it all the time. If you have $200,000, you take that $200,000, you put it into the world and you say, hey, go to work and bring back some more friends when you come back. So it's just a very good way to have a set way of investing your money where it is stable and you have control. If you throw your money in the stock, you're kind of crossing your fingers. I mean, at the end of the day, you can only buy so many iPhones to try to drive the price of Apple up. I mean, you just don't have any control. In this game, you have total control. If things are, today we're dropping off shingles because the guys are doing the roof tomorrow and Menards didn't drop off half the order. Well, we could pay Menards to bring it out later. We could delay the roof, but we have total control. So we had control to say, let's go grab these shingles and drop it off. And, the guys will be ready to go tomorrow. You have total control in, what color you paint the things, what prices you charge. You have total control of the entire investment. So you can look at your path and your goals and say, here's where I want to be. I have 200,000 to help me get there. What is the best way to deploy this? In the multifamily world, you can place a lot of money very quickly. In the multifamily world, 200,000 is not going to really buy you a big apartment. It's going to be tough to get a complex that 200,000 down does anything. In the storage world, you can start to learn and you can put $200,000 to work. You could have bought this property, like you said, put your 200 down, borrow 250 from the bank, and you could be up and running and operating this property. But like I said, the problem with it all, it's great to have that control. The problem is, do you have the time to do it? And if you have the time and not the money, a property like this would be perfect. I mean, this property paid, high fours for it. It'll be worth $1.5 million when we're done. So if you have a ton of time and no money, but you got the hustle and the grind, this would be a perfect project that you could get into and you would basically make this your full-time job. But at the end of a couple of years, you'd have $1 million in your pocket. So it'd be, much better paying than any other job you could go sign up for.
Is there like a breaking point of if you bought a storage facility that only has 30 doors, yeah, you have all 30 occupied, but like, is that what does cash flow feel like? What is that very profitable or advantageous, or is it you really got to get into the right today you're standing at 35,000 square feet, you're building 100,000 square feet, like where is it where it gets really exciting and makes it worth your time?
Well, it's getting more exciting every time we get bigger and bigger. So the answer is the bigger the better always. But the problem is, I think you need to learn at a lower level. I don't like to roll the dice and learn a new game. I don't like to place bets until I have a lot of knowledge. So basically, when I am placing bets, I like to place them on the $400,000 property, go through, practice the processes, run through how we think it'll operate. And then worst case scenario, we only have $400,000. We can get this property turned around pretty easy. Even if we wanted to sell it and break even and we learn for free, we could do that. But the goal is always to get bigger, because as you get bigger, you get scales of economy. So if this property was double the size, we would have double the income, but our expenses would not double. So if we had double the income, maybe our expenses went up 20%. So every time you grow, that income does grow at that percentage of growth, but the expenses do not. Taxes don't go up. If we doubled this property, the taxes would not be double. The insurance would not be double. All the maintenance would not be double. So all those expenses grow gradually, where if you get bigger, that grows exactly there. So the bigger, the better. It's just, you can't walk in a bank on your first one and say I have $200,000 and I'd like to buy a 100,000 square foot facility. They're just going to say we're missing a lot here.
As you were talking, I was thinking about the article that we have on grandvision.co about why now is the best time to get into multifamily. You wrote an article. Everyone should go out and read that on grandvision.co/articles. It is probably what a 5-6 minute read of why multifamily right now in late 2023, this is the best time to do it. I also think of the same thing with multifamily. Like, let's talk about some of those, economy factors that you were just talking about with taxes and insurance and things like that. 5 years ago, I think the economy of storage was different than it is today. Where do you see it in 5 years from now? Like, or is this the best time to get into storage as well?
So I got our motto is always, right? The best time to start was yesterday. The second best time is today. So I think it's always good to just get in and get started. You really cannot predict what the cycles are going to do with the economy, but you do need to keep your finger on the pulse to know kind of what strategies you're implementing at what time. So for instance, right now, end of 2023, I don't have a ton of experience in office space, but that'd be a perfect example. The office space industry is kind of getting destroyed by the remote work switch. So if you're in that industry, you need to understand and know that. But within the storage world, what things that we're looking at and we're kind of testing out right now is we're just basically saying, are Americans buying less or buying more? Are there, affordability for their housing? Is it getting better or getting worse? So the answer to those two questions in the storage world is they're buying more stuff. We're becoming more of a consumerism society year after year. Affordability on houses, the interest rates are through the roof, rents are through the roof. So affordability is not where it was, 5 years ago. So that means that I can't get as big of a house as I wanted to get. I can't build a barn. I can't have that storage shed. Everything is getting tighter, yet I'm still buying more than I ever have. So where does that stuff need to go? It goes to a storage facility. So that's kind of what we see going forward. There's also still a ton of these operators from the 1990s. So there's not a lot of technology built into it yet. So there's a lot of opportunity within the storage world, and the fact that our target market is needing us more and more. And the people who built this out initially did not provide the convenience and technology that the target market wants. So we can go and implement that and bring it to a new value where the previous operator, with the phone calls and stuff, just couldn't get it to that value because today's target market wants that convenience. So I see the storage being on both fronts, being very solid investment going forward. That's why we're in here testing it out and doing it right now. Same with the multifamily, the affordability is why we're in multifamily. We're buying apartments at $70,000 per door. Well, people can't afford rent, that is much above $1,000. And if they wanted to buy a house, it'd be $2,200, $3,000 a month. So they're just pricing, the interest rates are pricing people out of the market, and we're trying to be in those positions where people are going to be spending their money and providing what they need based on what the economy is giving them.
You mentioned technology a second ago. Obviously, we're a consumerism market. Technology is running everything. AI is in every other news story on TV. What are some of the technologies that you guys can put into storage? I know in multifamily we've upgraded our technology with laundry. We do Wi-Fi throughout buildings. We do security cameras, throughout the property. Some of those things that are more modern. The tenants like it. It creates some more ease for them. Can you do the same thing in storage, or is it like people are like, hey, I'm just holding my stuff over here. As long as there's a camera that will watch if somebody tries to break into my garage door, that's all I really need? Or is there other technologies that can be implemented into storage?
Most of the stuff that I've learned in storage, I've brought to the multifamily world because the technology in storage is at a greater level than multifamily. So it used to be, I told you a story, people get a phone call and they'd have to go meet the guy. So that's the old school way. Now there is a gate that allows people in or out. There's a keypad there. That keypad is tied directly to their online account. So from afar, we could open a gate or close a gate. We could lock out their code. Let's say their code is 2582. If they don't pay and we follow, the typical lien laws, but once they get to the point where they haven't paid, we can shut their keypad code off remotely so they can't enter the building. We do things like when somebody wants to rent, all of the units have our lock on them, and they all have a serial number. So when somebody rents a unit, we give them unit 4, they click a button, they rent it, it pops up, hey, your unit is number 4. They show up, their keypad already works because it's built into the software. They drive up to unit number 4. Unit number 4 has our lock on it with the serial number. They scan that serial number with their phone and it gives them the code to the unit. Now they have the code to their lock and they're in right there. So somebody could be pulled into our parking lot, pull out their phone, and be into their unit in less than 2 minutes.
What if somebody forgets their phone? Is it tough luck you can't get in, or is there ways that they can still get in the old-fashioned way?
Yeah, so they wouldn't know the code to that lock, but of course that keypad would work, and some people put their own locks on the unit. So we provide the locks if you want to use our locks, and we provide that 100% technology. But also, of course, we have a phone number. If somebody wanted to call, all they would need is their keypad code to get in. And some people will come up and I should mention as well, our locks that are on the vacant units, they also get text message of that lock PIN code. So they would know that. Of course, they couldn't scan, they wouldn't get that text if they didn't have their phone in your example, but they do get that message with that code. And then some people choose to just drop the lock boxes off in our drop box, and then we'll put them on another unit somewhere, and they use their own lock. And then other people just prefer to keep our lock on there, and they'll use our lock until they move out. So it's very nice to have all that convenience. The same thing technology-wise, we do lockouts. So once they haven't paid for a certain period of time, there's a second cylinder that, like a little location to put a second lock on there. So we overlock their unit. So even if they got their lock off, they couldn't open it up. So what happens is a lot of times people don't pay, they ignore you, and then we get to the overlock point. They show up to come get their stuff, and now we have our lock on there. And now they go, I can't get into my unit. What am I going to do? The moment they pay their behind balance with their credit card, then that code of the overlock gets sent to them, and they can take our lock off, and now they're back in. So it gives us a lot of ability there as well, to not have people all hacked off at us because they know they didn't pay. And as soon as they pay, they want access to their stuff right away. And, the old school way was a guy would drive out to take that lock off for you. So you had to wait for him to get here. Maybe he wasn't around. It wasn't a good system. So technology solves that problem as well.
For sure. And with somebody who hasn't paid and they got to pay that past due balance, I mean, that ensures that revenue as calculated is going to be coming in versus either that or, I mean, the alternative is they don't ever pay. They don't come get their stuff. You guys can open it, because of the overlock. And then you have a bunch of stuff that you can go out and sell, right? I'm kidding, but.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, yeah, that is, if they don't pay, then it goes to auction, so we sell it off, and then basically, whatever we get for it, hopefully it covers their balance. So if it doesn't cover their balance, it just gets auctioned off. If it does go over what their balance was that was owed, then the money technically gets sent to the state for those unfound money things. And, if there's an extra $100, they could claim their extra $100 down the road.
Gotcha. That makes sense. I want to spend the last couple of minutes talking about the actual facility itself, the actual structure. I know you guys, where you're at today, I'd call it like single story, right? It's all just kind of flat garage doors, main level on the ground. We had stuff in a storage unit not long ago that was like 4 stories tall behind a Walmart, and we were on the 4th floor. And so we're taking elevators and things like that. Do you foresee the trend in the future being, trying to get storage as close to people as possible and stacking it on top like we have in big cities? Or do you see it being kind of where you guys are at today, just outside of town, easily accessible on a main level? Where do you see storage going from an actual facility or structure standpoint?
Yeah, so that's all back to your first question when we're talking about location. That's going to be 100% location dependent. So the bigger ones, it just comes down to, let's say you have a 5-acre lot. Storage is not your most valuable investment in a city with that 5 acres. You need to build up, and you need to put things like retail, things like, multifamily, things that are going to produce quite a bit more income. So the only way to make storage work there is you have to build up, just like multifamily would or any other industry. They would build up on that parcel to get the most square footage on that same parcel. So when you're in towns where there's no big fields and there's no easy way to build horizontally, you have to go up vertically. So really, it's always going to come back to that square foot per capita. So in a city where there's thousands and thousands of people, you have to find a way to get more square footage of storage available to them. The only way to do that is to build up. Out here in the country, we have a ton of space, then you can go horizontal. It's going to be cheaper to build horizontal. It's going to be easier, more convenient for people. They just drive right up to their unit. But that only works when you have few enough people and enough land that you can build horizontal, and you're not fighting over empty lots to try to build up 5-10 stories.
For sure. Is the revenue different? So if you build a 4-story building that has 400 units, or if you build a flat single story on 5 acres that also has 400 units, is the revenue any different?
Typically, yeah, it's going to be more, just that city suburban life is going to be more expensive overall for everything. It'll work the same in storage. So it's really not a matter of anything to do with the build, whether it be vertical or horizontal. It's more just to do with the market conditions and your competitors. So downtown, when I say downtown, it doesn't have to be a big city. You are in West Des Moines, so you're not in the high rise, but enough so. But in that suburban kind of city atmosphere, when they build up, there's just not a lot of space for competitors to come in. so you can charge a premium. Or if a competitor did want to come in, the cost to build is so high that they have to charge a premium on that space. So that same 10 by 10 unit may be $140 because it's so expensive to operate within that, suburb. We're out, in the country where you can build horizontal. Well, the guy next door has a field as well. Maybe he gets zoning and he builds horizontal because it's just laying a concrete slab and putting some garages up. So your competition is going to charge less because they can, and therefore it's going to keep the market rates down. We can't take a 10 by 10 and charge 140 if the guy down the street is charging 50.
Anything else that we missed? I mean, this has been insightful for me. Again, I said at the beginning, this is just curiosity for me. I don't know a ton about storage. I know that we're going to incorporate that mode within Grain Vision at some point in the future, but as you're figuring out the nuts and the bolts of how it all works, we'll slowly get that done. But anything we missed before we wrap up, just because I think this has been super insightful. Anybody who, if they were like me, didn't know a ton about storage and listens today, you've given a ton of great insight. I think that gives people a better idea of as they're driving by and they see that horizontal or that vertical storage unit, they can kind of look at it and say, hey, I know a little bit about that now because I listened to Mike. But what are some of your final thoughts?
Yeah, so final thoughts, we'll just kind of tie the multifamily and storage together. So what we like about multifamily is we can place a lot of capital quickly. We can buy $10, $15 million property and it's not a ton of units. In the storage world, it's hard to place a lot of capital, $10 to $15 million. Even that 100,000 square foot build out that we're doing, that new development, that's only going to cost about $4 million to build out. So it's hard to place $10 million. To place $10 to $15 million in storage on our side, because we're managing a lot of money for people, you got to be in like that one that you talked about in West Des Moines. It's going to be a 4-story, a Class A. It's going to be beautiful properties. That's where you got to place that money. So that's kind of the difference of the two. But now you're the DIY person, back to that person who doesn't have a lot of money, but they have a lot of time. It's going to be much easier to get into the storage world, and it's going to be a lot easier to kind of get your hands around it and learn the ropes within the storage world. You can still find a lot of properties storage-wise, that are going to be less than $500,000. So it's within striking distance if you don't have a ton of money, but you have a ton of time to really get things going. In the multifamily world, it'd be hard, honestly, to find a 4-plex for under $500,000. So that's only 4 units, where in the storage world, you might be buying 100 and some units of storage. So it's definitely for a DIYer. It's an easier game to enter. For us, we're using that DIY side of things to learn the process. But really, we are going to be getting into, more of those vertical builds and the Class A ones, just because, with all of our investors and having that money, we got to be able to place a lot of money quickly. So that's why we stick to the multifamily, and then we'll switch to the bigger and nicer, storage facilities.
Well, I don't want to keep you too long. You probably want to get back in the truck in the heat, because it looks bitter cold there, man. I'm enjoying a nice warm studio in my basement, so no envy there. But I'll let you get back to it. It's always fun. We'll do it again next week.
All right, man. Yeah, sounds good. Next one we're doing in Florida. We'll go buy a storage unit or apartment or something in Florida, and then we'll do winters down there.
Yeah, there you go. We got to think this through.
All right, buddy. Well, good talking again, and we'll see you later.